Small actions can have a huge impact. And I believe that one of the biggest superpowers, one of the most powerful of superpowers, is that of compassion. Compassion can connect us in such beautiful ways. It can build bridges between different people. It can connect different people. And I wanted to share a story from one of my favorite websites. Every morning I start my day with either dailygood.org, that's dailygood.org, or helpothers.org, helpothers.org. I do not click on CNN, I do not click on the news, because so often the mainstream media is filled with negativity, fear, and the idea that we're supposed to somehow all be pitted against each other. Where helpothers.org and dailygood.org focus on all the amazing things that are happening at exactly the same time all over the world. And it's a really great way to start the day with something positive. So I wanted to share a story that's a small act of compassion, but has a huge impact. Because what I really want you to leave with this evening is the idea that being super is not about doing gigantic things. It's about doing small things with heart and compassion. So this was a story that I just saw this past week, and it's called The Gift of Acceptance. The Gift of Acceptance. So there was a young woman, and she went to her local laundromat. And she went to the local laundromat quite often, and when she arrived that particular day, she noticed an old woman. And the old woman was sitting on a bench, disheveled, all by herself, and she seemed to be talking to herself. She was mumbling something indecipherable. And what the young woman noticed right away was everyone else in the laundromat gave that older woman a very wide breath. No one sat with her, no one interacted with her, and the young woman was surprised by this a bit. And she sort of observed the older woman for a while, and the young woman continued putting her laundry into the washing machine, putting the soap in, and getting everything ready. And then she decided to go and have a seat next to that older woman. And the young woman sat next to the older woman. The older woman did not acknowledge her. The young woman just sat. She smiled at the old woman. The old woman did not acknowledge her. She continued to mumble under her breath for the entire cycle of the washing machine. And then the young woman smiled at the older woman again, got up and took her clothing out of the washing machine, putting it into the dryer. And that's when she saw out of the corner of her eye that the older woman had gotten up off of the bench. And she came over to the young woman, pressing a note into her hand. And on the note it said, "Thank you for sitting with me. I have not spoken since my son was killed in the war. I come here because this is where he did his laundry, and I feel connected to him. Thank you so much for having compassion." And the old woman smiled, and the young woman smiled back. And thus began a very different kind of friendship. That young woman started going back to the laundromat. She went every chance she had and would simply sit with the older woman. They never talked. They just sat together. Sometimes the older woman would put her hand on the young woman's hand. The young woman would place her hand on the old woman's hand. They just sat. This went on for months. And then one afternoon, the young woman went into the laundromat, and the older woman wasn't there. But the young woman noticed, she noticed another young woman. And this young woman looked oddly out of place. Her hair coiffed just right, her outfit not like someone you'd usually see in a laundromat. Her nails perfectly manicured. And she just looked uncomfortable. And the young woman, she went about doing her laundry, and then for some reason she felt compelled to go over to the other younger woman, and she said, "Excuse me, have you seen an older woman today sitting right here over on this bench?" And the young woman said, "I believe you're speaking about my mother. Her name was Alice." And the young woman said, Alice, yes, I sat with her. And the young woman reached into her pocket, pulled out a letter, and handed it to the young woman. And then without another word, the perfectly coiffed, manicured younger woman left. And this is the letter